I do not own the rights to this music.
All to Jesus I surrender. All to Him I'll freely give. I will ever love and trust Him in His presence daily live. I surrender all. Thank you, Jesus. I surrender all. Oh, Jesus. All to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all.
Hello and welcome to Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron. Sunday School lesson for Sunday, July the 12th, 2026. Our reference material for the Sunday School Summary is based upon the International Sunday School Lesson Series as published by the Sunday School Publishing Board. We are discussing Faithful Witnesses as the title of the Summer 2026 lesson series, and it is a discussion of men and women of the Old and New Testament who testify to God's promises, accepts and acknowledges the power of a relationship with Jesus Christ, and testimony to spread the gospel or the good news of Jesus Christ. The title of our sixth lesson comes from Unit 2 of the Summer 2026 lesson series, and it is titled From a Rock to a Hard Place, or Peter's confession does not match his actions when his faith is tested. The title of today's lesson, From a Rock to a Hard Place, comes from the books or Gospels of Mark, Luke, and John. And Mark narrates the ministry of Jesus from his baptism by John the Baptist to his crucifixion, his burial, and the discovery of his empty tomb. Luke recorded the life of Jesus from his birth through his earthly ministry, teaching, death, and resurrection. Luke wrote the book of Luke to share the gospel or the good news, teaching concerning salvation through faith in Jesus Christ. John was one of the three apostles who knew Jesus best, and John's gospel focuses on who Jesus was as the Son of God. John calls Jesus the Word, and that Jesus is the one that God sent into the world so that we could see and understand his message of grace and truth, which brings us to today's lesson. There are two summary points for today's lesson. It's a bold confession and a brash promise, and that's from Mark chapter 8 verses 27 through 29 and Luke chapter 22 verses 31 through 34. And the second summary point is a devastating denial and a gracious restoration, and that comes from John chapter 18 verses 25 through 27 and John chapter 21 verses 15 through 17. The passages for the lesson today revolve around the key words faith, wisdom, and the word. And we know that faith is a complete trust, assurance, belief, or confidence in God. It is Peter's lack of faith or test of faith as he denies Jesus under duress, and his renewed faith based upon the gracious acceptance of Jesus in today's lesson. And wisdom is the ability to apply experience, knowledge, and understanding to produce good judgment. It is the wisdom of Peter inspired by God to inform him that Jesus was the Christ in today's lesson. And word is the scriptures inspired by the Holy Spirit that communicate God's will, laws, and prophecies as embodied by Jesus Christ. And the word is Jesus' command to Peter to feed my sheep, or to nurture, guide, and protect the flock in today's lesson. Our first summary point is a bold confession and a brash promise from Mark chapter 8, verses 27 through 29, and Luke chapter 22, verses 31 through 34. And in these passages, it records Peter's confession of who Jesus is. And he says, and Jesus and his disciples went around the villages around Caesarea Philippi, and Jesus questioned the disciples, who do the people say that I am? And they replied that some say that you are John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others say one of the prophets. But what about you, Jesus asked, who do you say that I am? And Peter answered that you are the Christ. And goes on to say in Luke chapter 22, verses 31 through 34, Jesus informs Peter of his following of what to expect. And he says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith will not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. So Jesus is warning them of what it means to know Jesus and to follow Jesus, that there are prices or tests along the way. Our second summary point is a devastating denial and a gracious restoration, and that's from John chapter 18, verses 25 through 27, and 21, 15 through 17. And these passages records Peter's second and third denials, as Jesus had informed him that he would deny him, even though Peter had confessed that he loved Jesus and he would follow him to the end. He says Simon Peter was still standing and warming himself, so they asked him, aren't you also one of his disciples? And that is the crowd that Peter was in, and Peter denied it. He said, I'm not. And one of the high priest's servants, who was a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, did not see you with him in the garden? Peter denied it once more, and a rooster crowed, and Peter knew that what Jesus had spoken to him had come true, that he had failed Jesus, his faith had wavered, and he had denied knowing Jesus. And John chapter 21, 15 through 17 records Jesus and Peter's conversation after the resurrection and before Jesus' ascension into heaven. And when they had finished eating, they had eaten, and Jesus asked Simon Peter, says, son of John, do you love me more than these? And Peter answered, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And Jesus' reply was to feed my sheep, or my lamb, And Jesus asked a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord, he answered, you know I love you. Jesus told him to shepherd his sheep this time. And lastly, Jesus asked a third time. He says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt and offended that Jesus had asked him a third time, and he also felt a sense of guilt since he had denied Jesus. And he says, Lord, you know all things. He replied, you know I love you. And Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. So Peter is experiencing a journey from denial to restoration as reflected in Jesus commanding him to feed his sheep. So even though Peter was tested and he failed or wavered in his faith, Jesus restored him to his place in the heaven by telling him to feed his sheep, or commanding him to feed his sheep, which was to nurture and guide the sheep. So as Christians, we are to nurture our faith and nurture the faith of others and guide them as God has revealed to us. This is Brother Ron with the Sunday School Summary for Sunday, July the 12th, 2026. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed week, and we hope to see you next Sunday for another edition of Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron.